Hi, Ben.
Hi.
We're back again with Haunted Hearsay. We have a few stories lined up for you again today, but I just want to point out to anyone listening, we're still in COVID lockdown here. We're on level 5, so we're very limited as to going visiting or going anywhere outside our own local area. So we did have other things lined up. We do have stories lined up, or I certainly have a few lined up that I've told Ben about in the past. But I want to take you to the location when I'm telling you the stories. So we'll need to wait another few weeks. Hopefully this will be over now in a few weeks. We'll wait another few weeks. And it's at that time of the year, it's striking areas and they'll make a big difference being able to show. Tomorrow, in fact, I'm going out to see one that's going to be a fab story. And I'm hopefully we'll have it all ready for Thursday evening. But it is a very interesting fab story and involves very famous people. I was actually looking up to see if I could find a connection between Ringo Starr's first wife and the family in Letterkenny. I couldn't. It just says she was born in Liverpool. I'm assuming it's the first wife, but hopefully I'll know tomorrow. Not that she's involved in it, just that her family owns the home in Letterkenny that I'm talking about, and I'm hoping to get lots of pictures tomorrow and get the full story on it and the whole gist. So I'm looking forward to that. But tonight we have the one with just over at the top of the road here in Lunya in Gweedore, and we're going back about 100 years. And there was a wee thatched building. You'll see a picture very similar to what it would have looked like. It doesn't, it's been knocked down years ago. And when I was growing up, it was known as Hannah Call's shop. Now, it was still a shop, a wee shop in the 70s. I can remember being a wee girl and getting in. Place was rat infested. I mean, it was a thatched cottage with a latch door, and probably you could have crawled in underneath the door. It was that, open. But it was just such a quaint wee place. But apparently now back at the turn of the last century, so it would have been, I'd say around the 1910s, maybe 1920s at the very most, it certainly would have been during the occupation of the British here. Because a lot now, especially in Gweedore, it was the black and tans that were based over here. A lot of everyday crime went by pretty much either undocumented or unnoticed because of the bigger picture that was going on in Ireland at the time, because of the upcoming rising, the occupation of the British, etc. Your mundane, average, run-of-the-mill crimes didn't seem to have the same spotlight like they would nowadays. But one of the stories now is that this wee shop now, I don't, as I say, it wouldn't have been Hannah Call's then, I don't think so, but it was still, it might have been just a house or maybe was used as a shop, but it was certainly a gathering place where people used to go and play cards every week. That's something people did around here right up until the 80s. You would have card nights in pubs and halls, and be it whist or bridge. It's not something you hear very much of now. But it's definitely something that's been very much part of Donegal culture, going to play cards. And four people went to play cards this night in over at where Hannah Call's shop was, the building. And you can only see, as I say now, the ground that's left there now. And three went home, and one was found murdered the following morning. Now, I don't think we're talking, serious I don't know. Maybe it was poker. Maybe it was bridge. Maybe it was whist. It's possible it was something as mundane as bridge or whist, because I mean, poker games, you think the Wild West, lots of people were shot for cheating at poker and things like that. You don't so much hear people shooting each other over a game of bridge, that sort of thing. But I'm not. I don't think this gentleman was shot. I believe that a fight ensued and he was murdered as a result of the fight. There are no names, and as far as I know, there were no convictions. But this poor soul that was the brunt of it, whether they would caught him cheating or whatever it was, for whatever reason, it, they killed him. Whether all three of them did it or one did it and it was an accident, we'll never know. Because as far as I know, there was no convictions, it was just all hearsay at the time. There was definitely a man murdered, but he started to appear to people. There's, as the top of the hill from my house here, there's a dip in the road that takes you up to that part. I've shown the picture there. And it's the loneliest part of the road. It really is. Even you're coming over at night, there's lights quite along the road quite for quite a bit, except that dip. And even as a young girl coming home, and I'd be coming over here to visit my grandmother, that was the one part of the road you always ran past
Mm.
because it was really scary. Now, this is way before I knew about this character.
Yeah.
But I believe that he has appeared to lots of people over the years. And he comes out and it's the old cap, the old, and men dressed better 100 years ago. They would have had their suit jacket on and their shirt tied up and their tie and everything on, and the old cap and the hands in the pocket, whatever. So he has appeared to people, and it is a spooky bit. So if you're ever coming over Lunya, you get to that dip in the road and you're walking, I'd say walk a wee bit faster before your man catches up with you.
I
I'd
say,
love to know if there were names involved, but again, I've spoke to a few people now. Hopefully now somebody can come back that might know a bit more about that story.
yeah.
I know there's several people. I just haven't had the opportunity to go and talk to them that I've heard of it and know of it. My mum's one, but she doesn't really. She just remembers the story as a child and that four men went to play cards, three went home, and the other was found murdered. But then, as I say, it's he started to appear to people. Now, whether he still does, I certainly haven't heard of anything in the recent years. But it would be very interesting if anyone's listening, that if they know anything about that particular story in Lunya, if they could get back to us and even make a comment on it, would be very much appreciated. I just think it's interesting. There's ghosts on my own doorstep, you know. And yourself, what have you had anything recently that?
Not recently. Maybe we should chat about that the last time I saw you when you were up staying in my house. So
Yes,
I live in an
yes.
apartment block in a place called Ranelagh, and the building used to be where Padraig Pearse lived. There's a big plaque up on the wall outside. Um, it's now lots of different apartments, but I presume it would have been one big house in the past. Um, and you said that you had a bit of a
I'm not a bit. I've seen something. I
so
100% seen something. I was 99. I was 99% certain. The following night, I was 100% certain.
yeah,
Literally, I'd gone to bed. We'd been chatting and going through various things, and I had gone to bed, and out like a light because it's really quite quiet in your street.
mm,
And I don't know what it was, but something during the night. And there's a mirror on the wall, a full-length mirror on the wall at the bottom of the room I was sleeping in. And I kind of looked up and I saw this black mass, but it was obscuring the mirror. I couldn't see the mirror. So it was a black mass. And I didn't realize till the morning that there was a mirror there. I hadn't noticed it when I'd gone into bed that night. And so it was obscuring the mirror. So you couldn't actually see the mirror, but just this black man. It was as if it was bent over me. The way I didn't actually, now as I say, I've said before, I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. It didn't frighten me as such. I
mm,
just felt like it was, who are you? And that's what kind of woke me up, as if someone was bent over me saying, who are you? And I looked up and I said the same thing back, who are you? But I kind of closed my eyes and went back to sleep. I don't know how much longer later I woke up again. It was still there. And I can remember looking at it and thinking, if I don't acknowledge it, it'll be okay. And I just went back to sleep. Following morning, I told you then when I come in I said, me, Ben, there's a ghost ghost down in your back room. And I thought, I mean, but then maybe did I? Did no, I did. And hadn't noticed the mirror, and I thought, oh my God, it was completely blocking the mirror. So the following night I slept in that room, I woke up as well, and there was nothing at the bottom, and I could see the mirror clearly, and I could actually see the lights of the street coming through the side of the curtains and reflecting off the mirror. And that's when I knew for a fact there was
that's
no doubt that I had seen
yeah,
something because I didn't even see that the night before that whole area was completely obscured, completely dark. But
yeah,
again, I didn't find it threatening. Now I know that you went in and
yeah.
uh,
So,
saged as soon as
say,
I told you. So
just
that was maybe why that it's left. It didn't feel in any way threatening,
yeah,
but 100%, I would go as far as to go cross my heart, hand to God on both my boys. That was I 100% saw something. And the weird thing is, it's again, you would think you'd wake up and you see something, you'd be terrified.
yeah,
But it was kind of, I was like, who are you? But I knew I was kind of repeating what I thought I'd just heard.
yeah.
And then a wee while later, I just thought, I'm just not acknowledging it. And I just straight back out to sleep again. So, yeah, I definitely saw something in your house. Has
I,
anyone else said that in that building?
but I haven't had many people over since the pandemic started because I'm only in here since January. So, um,
But what about in the other apartments? There's a few other apartments.
Yeah, I must ask. I have friends. I know the people down in the basement, so I must ask and see if they've ever had anything.
It would be very interesting to see. Has Anthony ever stayed in the house?
He hasn't stayed in the building, but he might know a bit more about the history because it's his parents' building, so
Yeah, and Anthony would be quite susceptible. He's quite sensitive to,
very open. And
like Stephanie, your sister Stephanie, they're quite sensitive to vibes and things like that.
his mother is uh, very psychic as well.
Is she? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, well,
Oh, that's probably where he gets it
she
from.
hears bells all the time, kind of like the banshee when you kind of forewarn a death.
Mm.
You can hear church bells in her head when
Wow.
there's a death coming. She's terrified of it.
You would be.
She had to. The story goes that she not that long ago because she wasn't dealing with it very well, and then Anthony was talking to her about it, and then he spoke to her, a mutual friend, who is a psychic, and she was like, just tell it to go away, like what you said before in your story about the light, um, the light bulb exploding. If there's ever anything, and you just say out loud or even inside your head, just leave me alone. I don't
I
care.
think the idea is to be quite forceful. Like, no, go away, leave me alone. I think you need to say it out loud.
So that's what she
Or,
did. And it got less scary for her. I haven't spoken to her in years about it, but I'm talking in the last 3 or 4 years. It's come up.
oh, I wish I'd known that when we went to the gallery, to your showing in the gallery, and
Oh, you could have spoken to her.
yeah, I could have spoke
Yeah,
to her, but
yeah, she's
we had
funny
so
about
much
it.
Christmas things to talk about when we were there.
Next time, I suppose. But yeah, she's a bit funny about it because it's very real to her, you know. So
Yeah,
uh,
these things. I mean, people think, "Oh, I'd love to be able to do it." You think, no, you wouldn't. There's an awful lot attached to it. I know I certain things when I was young, if I had a dream, and
mm,
I did have several where things happened afterwards, and I can remember being terrified, going through phases, terrified that everything I dreamt would come true.
hmm.
Now, I mean, to be honest, I would have had bad dreams watching Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee doing Frankenstein and Dracula. Now, by nowadays standards, you'd watch it and probably laugh. When I was young, that was terrifying. And I
Yeah,
would have had nightmares about that afterwards as well. And, oh my God, I hope it's not coming true. So, I mean, I was just young and it took a long time to sort of filter out and to learn about it and acknowledge it.
yeah.
And there's things I would acknowledge, things I don't acknowledge.
I'm
Sometimes,
pretty open to the idea of everything, but purposely closed off. I'm very much don't want to let anything in. Don't want
yeah, see, that's
to.
when I was younger, I was very open to the ideas of all these things. And it's like lots of people, oh, I want proof and I want this and I want that. And I would never try to say to somebody, like, you must believe me because I'm telling you this. Everyone's entitled to wait and have their own experience. And then, I'd never force someone into believing it. But my experiences are the reason I believe wholeheartedly. And there's lots of things then that I experienced that I wish I hadn't.
Hmm.
And there's lots of things that are just they were way outside my realms of sort of things outside what I knew and
Mm.
understood properly. And I don't want to dabble in things that I wouldn't be 100% sure of, especially when things happen. It's like the time I told you, the one and only Ouija board session I ever went to was in Hamilton in Glasgow. And it was a party that my friend's older brother was going to. Now, we were 15 and 16, myself and Joe, and the brothers were 18 and 19, and they had to take us along with them. I was only there on holiday for a few weeks, and we went up got the train up from Glasgow up to Hamilton, up beautiful big house. Our father was away for the weekend, and of course, everyone, the first thing is down to the cellar to raid the wine cellar. And I mean, the house was just phenomenal. And they had this room, which was a dining room, and then one of those tables, before, like the one you had in the last house you were in, must have sat about 20 people.
What are they, oak or something? Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous, the big high back chairs and everything, and crystal cabinets and the lovely white carpet. I always remember the white carpet because I remember thinking, who gets a white carpet? We had lino everywhere in our house when I was growing up. Who has a white carpet? You had to be very posh to have a white carpet or no children or animals in the house.
Yeah.
But I didn't really want to take part in it. Even then, I was a bit apprehensive about doing anything that might call in spirits or demons. And so myself and Joe and a few others, we kind of stood back and watched. And there was about five of them sitting round, well, not sitting round, but down round the bottom of the table, and they're holding hands, or they've got a glass over a Ouija board. They didn't have the triangle things. They've got a glass over the Ouija board, and the glass is moving. But they're all accusing each other. Stop that! You're moving it. Stop it! That's not. I'm not moving it, and you're moving it. And at one stage, then, because the girls would get frightened when one would move, this would be their friends, their group. And we're kind of standing watching it, and we're like, did they move it, or is it one of them? No, but we weren't sure of the boys making fun of them until eventually, because the boys were so adamant, I think it was like two or three boys and two girls, they were so adamant that they weren't moving. They all sat back and took their hands off it. And see, when they did that, the glass flew off the table and smashed on the carpet. Flew off the table and smashed on the carpet. You never seen a room clear so quick in all your life, and the boys were the first out. Not the girls, the boys were the first out. We were standing and we weren't the first out. And I remember they come out and they closed the door, and nobody wanted to go back into that room. And even only being 15, I knew enough to say somebody has to go back in and close what you have started. You can't just invite a spirit in and then go, oh, sod that, and run out and close the door. Now, as far as I know, none of them, because none of them wanted to go back. That was the party over.
Yeah.
A lot of the people went home, and there was maybe a couple of dozen. A lot of them went home. It was sort of, it's weird. It's like, I sod that, bring Game of Soldiers. I don't want to see anymore. And that was enough to scare people. That's how everyone knew that it wasn't anyone pushing or doing it at that stage. They didn't even get to the questions, but they were just, is anybody there? And the glass started moving. So that was one experience, and I thought I would never. And then I actually heard of two very similar stories, same thing, carpet, sitting at a table, a group of women. One of them's a relative of mine, and it was her and her friends did it. And I'm assuming he's either Glasgow or London, whatever they were in. And same thing, glass flew off the table and smashed onto a carpet. And then I heard that story from, so I've heard that story from two other people as well as experiencing it. And
Yeah.
that's people that weren't versed, that didn't know how to use it properly, that were doing it for a laugh to see if anything would happen.
We should do a whole chat about glass divination.
Yeah, it would be very interesting.
I'm gonna ring Anthony today and force him to get involved because he's got some crazy stories.
I know, I know.
We keep mentioning him, so I need to really.
Well, we keep doing it, and I mean, hopefully he'll listen to us enough and go, "Ah, all right then." Come in. Now, I do have a few people lined up that I was hoping to speak to in the last couple of weeks, but again, because of the COVID restrictions, and two of them are elderly, and so it's not like I can say you wouldn't go on Skype and Skype us because they'd look at you and go, "What?" So I have them lined up. I'm really hoping to get to talk to them in the next month if if the restrictions are relaxed. So that's going to be some good. One of them is a storyteller, and so that'll be a good one to get chatting to him and hear his stories. And if we're very lucky, he might tell us a story in Gaelic. So you'll have to get the subtitles on for that one. But yeah, we've got a few people lined up. I'm looking forward to getting the chance to get out to Rutland Island and explore the stories there. But I know what we're planning to do. You put up the 10 most haunted places in Ireland not that long ago, and we're actually going to take them one at a time and have a wee chat about each of them. We'll maybe do that in the next week or two, and just to get and if there's anybody that has any interest in anything that they'd like to hear, they're more than welcome just to let us know, send us a message, and
We're always looking for
yeah,
new stories, even just for ourselves to know about.
well, that's it exactly.
We
We've got
always go back and dig deeper then, and things come up again in conversation. So I was just thinking there when you were talking about the guys running out of the room, um, the original story of The Exorcist, the movie,
yeah,
it was based on a real possession of a boy. It was a little boy, but
1948, isn't it?
he's still alive. This guy is still alive. Like he's not. He basically got sent to. They couldn't uh, exorcise him, and he ended up being institutionalized in a hospital that was run by the Jesuits.
Wow.
And then eventually, after years of the Jesuits kind of trying to exorcise him, he uh, he got out and now he's fine. He's a grown man now.
Yeah, I watched was it the director of,
Yeah.
what do you call him again? The director of The Exorcist.
I can't
I'm
remember.
good at remembering names. I'm not. Oh, I just have a wild habit of going your man or your woman. I need to try and make an effort to start remembering names.
It was William Friedkin is the director.
Then maybe it's the producer. I'm not sure. I watched a program recently,
His name was
and
Bill Blatty, William Blatty.
I could be him. I was telling you about it, and it was a documentary he was doing
It's on
on
Netflix, isn't it?
exorcists. And he
Yeah.
went to Rome, and the oldest exorcist there from the church who allowed him to come and watch an exorcism. And it was very interesting. And the reason that he did that, because the actual film, The Exorcist itself, he didn't want to mirror image what had really happened, the story that he was really working on. That's the one you're talking about, the young boy, because I
Mm.
think that was 1948. I'm not 100% certain, but I think it was 1948 that that happened. So he decided that after all these years that he would like to go and see what a real exorcism looked like. And he did. He went to Rome, and I can't think of the priest's name. As I say, I'm terrible with the names. And this priest, I've told you this before, he starts every exorcism by doing that. And the guy was like, "Why do you do that?" He says, "I'm mocking the devil. That's the first thing I do is, yeah, yeah, I'm mocking the devil." And I was actually, I thought it was it was a real eye opener. And as he said himself, now this was a young lady who's an architect in Rome and has been apparently possessed and has these breakouts but the people, her family, I mean, you're not talking like a crowd of young people that are sort of, oh yeah, I'm really, you're talking a modern day middle-aged old family that are sitting there. We need help from the priest, etc. They're all there together. There's nothing about this that's in any way, there's no way trivialized, or it's very serious, and they're there and they're very serious. And it's so weird that when she started to talk, now this is just one of these, like somebody sitting there, not with a camera, but with a phone
Mm.
filming all this. And there's a lot of it. And I thought, you're kind of waiting for a wee bit of action. But no, she starts to get agitated and she's moving about. And the more the priest is sort of saying certain things. And at some stage, he says, he's the priest beside him. He's like, hold her. No, there's two family members and I think two priests, and they're like holding her. And when they do, and it comes out, we are legion.
Mm.
But it doesn't come out as a single voice.
It's multiple, yeah.
It came out like a chorus about the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And the more that happened, the more they prayed. The whole family are sitting praying. The more the priest prayed, the more, And then he's like, let her go. They're only restraining her when she's doing things that might hurt herself. But that was the bit that scared me. That
Well,
was on cue, and it came out of nowhere because everyone kind of stopped and looked. And well, the priest wasn't, he was just kept going doing what he was doing. But it was We Are Legion, and it was the noise, that was that guttural sound, and it was definitely a male voice, but it was a chorus of voices. It was like a lot of voices saying at the one time. And that was a documentary. That made the hairs in the back of my neck stand up. The man that made the film, The Exorcist, he was there. He watched this as well. The
yeah.
same. It was a real eye opener. Now, The Exorcist, the priest that was there, who's really quite old now, I think he's in his 90s, and he said that he liked the film The Exorcist because it highlighted. Obviously, there was a lot of interpretation for the actual movie to make it more. There was a lot. He says, but it did highlight
Mm.
some of the work that they have had to do over the years.
Is it Gabrielle Amorth is the priest?
That sounds about right.
Uh, he actually
In
died.
his 90s, he's the oldest now.
It's actually he died
Ah,
in 2016
God rest his soul. I was only watching the program recently,
because
and
he
I
was
thought it was very interesting. He was quite a character.
exorcist of the Diocese of Rome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
He
Well,
was head honcho. He was
yeah.
top guy when it comes to exorcisms. And that was the one thing that I found very funny, that he said at the start, We're
Mm-hmm.
mocking the
Well, what I was just
devil.
gonna say originally about this, when this kid went to hospital because they couldn't exercise him, and then the Jesuits spent years trying to exercise him. He was kept in a room, like a locked room, um, and eventually he was let out. But they closed the door of the room, and that this is in an actual hospital. They locked the door of the room and basically threw away the key. Um,
He's allowed in it now.
Nobody's let in that room, but they actually knocked the hospital down.
Wow.
Since. It's in a very good podcast on the Wandery Network. It's kind of like a dramatization of the creation of the story of The Exorcist. It's really good. So people
Wow. Well,
that
that's, I have to see with that Exorcist, the guy in Rome, and I was sitting watching it. He
yeah
says, you don't just go in, exorcise somebody once, and that's it. He says, you could be very, very lucky.
yeah
That's the case, but that's not the case. And they
it's
did introduce
the
several other
50s.
people in different parts of Italy whose family had been saved, where a family member had to be exorcised. Now, you're not going to tell these people that that isn't real and that this, there's something wrong. You're just not going to do that.
Mm,
But it's not a case, and that was something that surprised. Not a case of going in and let's. It's you could spend the rest of your life trying to exorcise these demons from people. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not worth the person's safety to keep going and going and going. That's probably why they locked that young boy up for a
yeah,
very long time.
yeah.
Probably safer for him.
Yeah, well, the impression I got was that they were going in every day. It was just it got treated more like a medical issue than
Yeah.
like after they went to the there's definitely accounts of the whole story online, but when they couldn't exercise the kid at home, they took him away and put him in a hospital. But again, this is in the 50s or something, or it's not that
Yeah.
long ago. It's
That's back whenever they used to take women and give them lobotomies because
mm,
they would maybe answered their husband's back or something. I
yeah,
know that's a bit of an exaggeration, but
but
there was, yeah, it wasn't unheard of. Women were locked up for things like that as
uh,
late as the 50s. Maybe not answering the husband back, but for being wayward or
do you know who I'd love to get an interview with, actually? And maybe I'll do some research. There's a Catholic priest in Dublin somewhere. I remember reading about him, but he's a psychic. He's
mm.
fully psychic. And I always wondered, I always thought it would be really interesting to hear what he thinks of, or what his understanding of the faith even says about kind of psychic premonitions and
See,
what how he reconciles it with,
yeah.
like, it's one thing being a Catholic and then also having sort of abilities. It's another thing being a priest and having abilities. Like,
You see, that's something that I think man himself dictated that said, I think this is all wrong, and that justified them going and burning women as witches or drowning them because they're in league with the devil because of this, what they do. And they weren't, most of them were just midwives that knew how to heal people through either healing or using herbs, whatever.
yeah,
I mean, it was victimized, people were victimized. But I mean, I've read the Bible. I've read both, but the Old Testament and the New Testament, and I've read speeches by Jesus, and I've never seen it in a speech or a parable given by Jesus, or indeed had it claimed that it was the word of God, that anyone that does anything to do with psychic ability is in league with the other man.
yeah,
See, I don't get that because if we, I think that's a contradiction from the church because if we're all made in his image
mhm,
and our talents and our beliefs are all basically inherent from him, then we've inherited those. No, I'm not saying, I'm not going to go a step further and say, like, I mean, evil. I think evil is a man-made
that's
concept. That's
yeah,
a different thing. But I mean, if it's something that happens naturally to people, it's something I was born with.
mm,
And I believe wholeheartedly in God. And I am obviously not the greatest Catholic in the world. I'm not a very good one at all, if I'm being honest. But it's not that I don't believe. I just difficulty with sort of each religion, like, You're allowed to do this, but you're not. You're allowed to eat that, but you're not. I don't believe in a God that's sitting up there going, you can do this and you can't. These are all men's interpretations of their environment, how they live, their traditions. And I think, to me personally, I look at it as a gift from God. And I would imagine that priest would say the same thing. I don't think it makes me a bad person being psychic.
No, no. Like I just think it's um you do get a lot of sort of strict dogma coming
Yeah,
from,
but I see. I think they're made up. They're man-made rules.
yeah,
I mean, this is. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we have more positive things coming from the church nowadays than what we did growing up,
yeah,
or definitely in the past. I mean, all you have to do is go back in the past when you had several popes in Europe, all claiming to be the pope, whether they were in was it Austria or Germany or France or Italy, whether it was the Borgias or the Medicis. But I mean, especially the Borgias and the Medicis. I mean, having orgies and things like that in the Vatican, and I mean, they genuinely didn't believe in God. They couldn't have, because if they did, they wouldn't have been doing what they were doing. But it was like, don't do as we do as we say,
yeah.
and we're all powerful. You know, so there's been that sort of
Politics are coming.
yes, exactly, down the years, which is enough of a reason. I mean, Catholic religion is a very, or has been in the past, a very corrupt
Yeah,
religion.
yeah,
Now, I'm not dismissing it because there's over 1 billion people believe in it. But that doesn't mean over 1 billion people are corrupt. They're not.
of course, yeah.
But it's certainly in the past, that sort of the rule of thumb, the sort of educated higher class. Again, it was like that conversation we were having earlier. People with money and power and lording it over people because they were poor or they weren't educated or whatever. So I mean, the church has come a long way.
Of
The
course,
church,
yeah.
we had more to condemn about the church in the last several centuries than we have. This particular, I think it's improved a lot. It's sort of accepting and acknowledging the things that were done wrong, and it's making an effort to get better. And it's the same when I went to Rome. Everybody's always on about, the opulence and the money the church has. I went to Rome, I didn't see that.
Really.
No, I mean, when I went round the Vatican, what I saw was an old city. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is opulence, there is, but they're from things that were made, built, or created in the last 400, 500 years or the last 1,000 years. These
Mm.
things dismantled would be worth nothing.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, there's that I mean, the architecture, the artwork, it's phenomenal. But apart from the actual paintings, anything else, if it was dismantled, would be worth nothing. And
yeah.
what I seen there was that it's I would imagine it's a lot of money to maintain Rome. It's like a beautiful old suit that's been well maintained, but you can see it's fraying round the edges.
Yeah, yeah,
It was well made, and it's stood the test of time this last 1,000 years and how many wars, but it's very frayed around the edges. And I mean, you see people all over Rome are making an effort to preserve everything there because let's face it, Rome is a living, breathing museum. You
hmm
don't need to go to a museum. You're in a museum when you're in Rome. Every street you go around, every bit, there's history, it's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But I didn't see the wealth that everyone's telling me about. I've seen phenomenal works of art. I've seen phenomenal pieces of sculpture. But if you were to take down and say, right, well, okay, we're going to take that down and make money out, take it down, you're not going to make money out of it. Maybe
yeah.
if you sold off the paintings, but who are they going to sell them off to?
They can't, yeah, they're priceless.
So I didn't see that aspect. And I had that conversation with one of our priests when we came back. He says, oh, I know that. I says, well, I didn't see that. When I got there, I was actually quite relieved that I didn't see that. As I say, what I seen was things that have been around for some cases over 1,000 years that are very well maintained, well, as well maintained as they can be. Phenomenal works of arts and things like that. But again, with Rota, definitely going back,
Yeah.
because to say it's, that,
I'd
Jeff,
like to go with you next time. I've
yep.
never been to Rome. I've only been to Italy once, and it was beautiful, but I was working, so it wasn't.
Well, I'd only been before when I went to Trieste, and Trieste was like something out of a cornetto ad. I always remember at the time we drove in from the Alps. and we were camping around Europe. This is back when I was about 19, and I remember we drove in we'd come across Austria, Yugoslavia, and come in at the Alps. So we're at the top. You come in at the very top, and we're looking down the side of the mountain to Trieste. It's a big marina village, and all these old crumbly buildings, beautiful. And I remember we pulled in at night, and we pulled into a lay-by, and it was so hot. I just took my sleeping bag and went out on a bench. I can
Mm.
remember waking up and just looking around, and it was all jasmine beside me and all these beautiful scents. And the sun's beating down. I remember just sitting up on the bench and looking down at this panorama. It was absolutely stunning. And I thought I would always go back, and I did eventually go back to Rome. But Genoa is definitely somewhere that I would like to do a bit more work on. Genoa apparently has more satanic cults than anywhere else in the world.
Oh, really? Mm.
Most Haunted is a program in England that's been running for quite a long time with
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't remember the blondie girl's name.
Yvette.
Eh?
Her name was Yvette.
Yvette Fielding.
Field.
I did remember. They done one of their Halloween programs from over there, and it was through them that I thought, oh God, I didn't know that. So of course I had to go and look it up, and that would be very interesting. Why Genoa? Why is there more satanic cults there than anywhere else in the world? It's weird that it's a city in the same country that you have the Vatican.
Yeah, yeah,
It's definitely warrants a bit more looking into.
yeah,
Don't know if I'd be in a mad hurry to go and visit it because I'm quite
yeah,
susceptible to energies, but I would certainly like to learn a bit more about it. There's
yeah.
something to be said for it.
I think in the same vein, I'd like to look into these kind of caves a bit more, like the Lough Derg cave and stuff. But I've
Oh,
heard there's
yes.
ones in Europe that are kind of used by ancient orders of religious orders, um, for
Well,
ceremonies, like
yeah, the
not
ones.
necessarily satanic or like
Mm,
I'm not saying they're not. They could be tapping into some sort of demon things. There's things that people don't want you to know about or something, but it's not like traditional devil worship, for instance. But there's for some reason there's networks of caves all around the world,
yes.
and the theory goes from everything from sort of a place that they just hid out, or a place that, like St. Patrick did purgatory, that kind of thing, all the way to sort of like center of the earth theory, like that
Yeah.
there's a hollow earth that people have been going into for centuries, and these religious orders are like the barrier to entry for the rest of us. Uh,
Yes, there's a lot of groups and cults. We said that before,
yeah,
that it's not just about, well, to us in our upbringing, etc. It's God and the devil, and that's where your demons are come from, etc. There's lots of other groups and cults that believe in ancient orders of all different gods, etc. And they've all different names, and it's not the same setup as what we'd be used to. So as you say, it's not. It would be a cult.
yeah,
It's not just as straightforward as what we would.
that's the mainstream. That's the interesting thing. It's like,
Exactly.
why did and even in Lough Derg, like they built the church on top of the cave. So
Mhm.
on the map you have the cave and then you have the church. Um,
Well,
like
I was just going to say for people listening, anyone that does it's not from here that doesn't understand what or who Lough Derg is. Lough Derg is an island in Ireland, just off the coast of Ireland, and people go and pay. People go there to pilgrimage. Catholics, people from denominations all over the world come there because of said reason, the hole as well as the actual church. But St. Patrick was a Welshman brought in forced servitude to the south of Ireland, actually, which was quite common back in his day. And he found religion, Christianity, when he served his time, went back to Wales, and then decided he wanted to bring the church to Ireland. Had fallen in love with the place while he was here and wanted to bring the church. So we know that he did. He brought the church to Ireland. But to prove his worth, he went to fight his demons to prove that his love was strong enough for the Lord. He was going to fight his demons. And that's where he went to fight his demons, was Lough Derg. Now, Lough Derg had no church then. It's the cave you're talking about. A huge, huge pit that was like an opening, a portal to hell. I'm not saying that that's what it was, but that's what people believed it was. And that's where he went and spent 3 days on that island by himself to purge and to fight his demons. And he came back and believed
Now
that his faith was strong enough.
the pilgrimage is like if you want to do it today, it's 3 days long, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And I have read, as I say, it's not just Catholics. People from denominations all over the world come to do this particular pilgrimage because it is a test of faith. It's a test of strength, and a test of faith. That's not a religious thing. That's a belief. That's a Christian thing. It's a belief, and that I'm completely and utterly okay with that.
It's kind of like I have a few friends that did like silent retreats where they don't talk for a week and they meditate for a week and they eat very little food for a week. But I suppose that'd be a more secular version of what this is, which is as you said, you don't need to be a Catholic to do it. I know the only people, one guy I know does it every year and he's in his 70s and he's from Dublin. And then another person I've met is not Catholic and he's done it multiple times.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, I'm just going to just to start again for anybody listening. The significance of this particular cave is that it's not the only one. It's like you were talking, there's caves in Europe. They're all over the world, these holes, these openings, these portals. There's one outside Jerusalem. I don't know exactly where, but I know that there's a cave and it's outside Jerusalem and it's past an area that has it's like a burning lake or something like that, whether it's underground lava or something, I don't know. But it was nicknamed, it was where the interpretation of hell, a modern day interpretation of hell, came from this particular area. Anyway, I would need to go into that a wee bit more. But it's just to say that those portals, but going back to the time, the first cartographers, which were, I believe, the Sumerians, they done a world map of what the world looked like in their time as the Sumerians. And Ireland is this little blob. It wasn't the wee dog that we see now sitting on its hind legs. It's a little blob. And the only place marked on the map for the Sumerians is Lough Derg.
mm,
Now that's gone back to one of the first world maps. How did they know? And they were able to mark these holes all over the island. I watched a film and I told you about this film. It's The Devil. What was it called again? The Devil. Oh, it's quite a recent film. It's only a few years old. It's a policeman in New York, and he's investigating these three soldiers that have come back from Afghanistan. And this is all based on a true story. This man's actually since left the police force and now works full time along with the Jesuit priest that he was working with at that time in helping him do exorcisms and paranormal sort of events and things like that. This guy actually left the police force, but the point of bringing up with that is that in the film it shows you these three soldiers in Afghanistan are actually out fighting, and there's an explosion, and during the explosion it opens up steps down into what appear to be an underground cave. And when they go down into this cave, there's markings all over the wall that are, obviously, I'm saying obviously, I don't know what they were, Aramaic or whatever, but they've gone down and before they went down into this and before this actual mission, they were like three stand-up characters. These were like, a way to fight for their country, etc. But they came out of that hole that night, basically after that. They survived, they went back to their barracks, and whatever
they're
ensued.
from evil.
They apparently they were possessed because they actually beat up one of the soldiers in the barracks beside them and beat him to death. And apparently it was unprovoked. They don't know why it was done. They were all I don't know whether they served time in their prison or there was proof of it. They were dishonorably discharged anyway. They came back to America, and then the story, I mean, I don't know how much of it is true then for the actual film. There'd be a lot then. There was sort of exaggerated, I'd say, for the film. But the basis is that in Afghanistan, it was some hole in the ground that had been buried for almost 1,000 years. And during the explosion, it's opened it up. They've gone down into it. These three guys come out. I think they're dead now for various reasons. Come out, they were never the same again. One of them covered himself in cuts with all this ancient language and everything on him. But the thing is, well, they say that he covered himself. these cuts are all over his body. Were all over his body. They were on his back, on the back of his arms. I don't know about you, but how would you reach,
No.
to do these and make it look like Aramaic? And I mean, how many young guys can speak ancient Aramaic
Yeah.
and write it down as well? So that's where the connection is. Those holes apparently, those portals are in countries all over the world. The
Yeah.
Sumerians seem to know where they were. I'd love to know why that they knew of these and how could they have possibly known someone that lived in the Middle East of this wee country, Ireland, that before it was even called Ireland, and we know it has that portal there. How did they know? And
Yeah.
that was this St. Patrick went to do his purgatory, and as a result, was canonized afterwards. Well, maybe
I'll put up some
not maybe not directly afterwards, but you know.
I'll put up some pictures, and I have some recordings of when we went to visit Lough Derg, but we didn't get very far. We were kind of
It'd be interesting just even to put up a couple of pictures just to show people.
yeah,
I've
exactly.
never
It's
seen
fascinating.
myself.
Station Island. I'll put up some pictures and
Yeah.
see. I'd like to get back out there. We got to a point where we got some information from the church about the island, but they said that we had to do the pilgrimage for us to get more information from them. So
Maybe we should.
maybe we should do the
Maybe
pilgrimage.
we should, because I know that the church
Over okay.
to banish those stories after St. Patrick had done his purgatory on this island, of it being a portal to hell. They built the church on top of the cave.
Maybe we'll do it and I'll sneak in my little recorder and we can we can talk about it
Yeah,
while I'm
that
there.
the good weather next year.
Yeah,
Think
yeah. I
optimistic.
doubt they're doing it now anyway. Maybe they are.
I just want to say to everybody, thank you very much for listening. I mean, if you get bored listening to us and it's not your cup of tea a few minutes in, I'm sure we will be talking about something you'll be interested in maybe next week or the week after. We'll chop and change. But please remember to like, subscribe, hit the
Hit
wee
the
bell if you want. Hit the wee bell if you want. But please like and subscribe. That'll keep us in there. And we can only get better. At the moment, we're working on a good delivery. We're doing Skype at the moment. I'm just thinking maybe Zoom might be the way to go in the future. It seems to be a better picture. I've also discovered, I thought, how hard can it be to sit down and just tell a story until I watched myself for the first time doing it, and I discovered I was a fidget. Well,
Yes.
it's very hard just to sit still and not have your arms waving about all over the place and jumping about the place. So yeah, it's a learning curve, and I think we're going to get better as we go along. We have so much yet to share with everybody. There's lots that we're saving so that I can go on location. We want to cover as many Irish ghost stories and specifically Donegal ghost stories to begin with. Coming up to Christmas, we have other stuff lined up that we're looking forward to sharing with you as well. And into the new year, we've already planned for January. We have some really interesting stuff to do with banshees, etc., and
Yeah.
fairies coming up. So hopefully by then we'll be able to go to locations,
Yeah.
and when telling you something, we'll be able to show you where we're talking about as well.
Next
So
spring, we're hoping to go to a very haunted hotel
yes.
in the Midlands of Ireland once. Again, COVID depending. But
Well, I'm going to do one tomorrow morning. I have an appointment, and I'm going to go afterwards. And I'm quite excited
no
about this
adventure
one.
tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll have all the info for Thursday. So it'll be a good conversation for Thursday. I'm looking forward to it. Ben, thank you very much for chatting with me this evening. And to everybody listening, thank you for tuning in again. As I say, we do have lots more lined up for you. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe.